I would say 100% of the parents, they are afraid of being left behind. So they are embracing technology. So everyone is embracing AI. So that's no issue at all. They prefer to have AI to teach because it saves money and it can give your kids better improvements. And there's no place to find human teachers to teach anyway, right?
Welcome to Manifold. My guest today is Joleen Liang. She is a co-founder of Squirrel AI, which is one of the leading AI education companies in the world. Joleen, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Steve. I'm so happy to be here today with you.
Great to have you. I probably should have introduced you as Dr. Liang because I believe you have a PhD and your dissertation work is actually on the use of AI in education. Am I right about that?
Yes, my PhD was focused on intelligent science and systems. So building an AI adaptive intelligent learning system for students and teachers. Yes.
Right. And so when was Squirrel founded?
Our company Squirrel AI Learning was founded in 2014, which is 11 years ago. It's really, far. And at the time, no people understand what AI was. So when we said Squirrel AI, people thought A1, AI wasn't popular at the time. Yeah, 11 years already.
Yeah, 11 years ago, you were supposed to use the word machine learning instead of AI.
Well, yeah, machine learning, deep learning, and then some algorithms names and some other algorithms. Yeah.
So tell us about how the company grew. And for the listeners, maybe I'll just say a few words about it. Squirrel has huge penetration in China. And so there are many, many thousands of locations where kids come in and they use the Squirrel AI platform to learn across a variety of subjects. And education outside the school system is a huge business, not just in China, but all throughout Asia and increasingly in the United States. So Squirrel is one of the leaders in this space. It's an area that I've been interested in a long time because I've been thinking about the potential of AI for education for a long time. And most interestingly, perhaps, Squirrel is expanding in the United States and getting ready for an IPO. And Joleen is the CEO of the US focused part of Squirrel.ai. But let's start with the early days, like when you guys were a scrappy little startup, and what were your dreams of what you wanted to accomplish and what happened during that 11 years?
Sure. I would be happy to share the story. So the reason why we found this company was because we really want to revolutionize the whole traditional education environment. And we have 4 co-founders, and the chairman, who is the founder, Derek Haoyang Lee, he has been in the education industry for 27 years now. And he had 2 IPO'd educational companies in the past before Squirrel Learning. But his mission is to provide personalized learning for students. So when he started to doing education, he knew that there was a huge shortage for good teaching resources, teachers, and students, they learn at the same pace, which is actually wrong. So he has been looking for something that can help him to provide a platform or product or company which provides personalized learning for the students. So in 2014, 13, he realized, okay, AI might be the future. But at the time in China, no one was talking about AI. Even in the United States, not many people talk about AI. But he found out some research that adaptive learning technology and method was one of the key methods to provide personalized learning. And there were only few companies started using AI algorithm to combine together with adaptive learning. So Derek thought, okay, let's do AI plus adaptive learning together to provide the true personalized learning. Because before, adaptive was kind of the regular adaptive. Students were divided into different levels and groups, and they were learning adaptively. That's correct. But what Derek wanted is each different student has each different learning pathway. So with AI algorithm plus adaptive, we did it. So at the very beginning time, we spent roughly 3 years building the product. When I say product, there are two main aspects. One is, of course, the AI adaptive engine, which is the platform. And the other part is actually the curriculum content design, because in the past, curriculum content design was in textbook, wasn't really digitalized. And there were really big range of learning objectives. So with AI and the content design, two core teams started together, but they had huge fight because in the curriculum team, the designers, they were superior teachers in China. They were really, really like 20, 30 years experienced teachers and full of experiences. They had their own way to teach and they didn't understand what AI was. And Derek requested to break down the learning objectives from 300 to 30,000 nano level learning objectives. And those superior teachers were crazy. It was very hard for them. So they had fight with the AI team because the AI algorithm need to combine together and link those really nano level of the learning objective, which means in this way, the students will be learning only very precisely about their loopholes, their weaknesses. But at the end, we had a platform and then the content designing team, they were convinced that this is correct direction. So after 3 years of the design, we started to launch the product. That was about 2017. We had some demo.
Can I jump in and ask a few questions?
Because sure, please.
Already in 3 years, you covered a lot of ground, right? So in Asia, the sort of classical cram school often has a kind of very charismatic teacher, someone who's really good at teaching kids and knows the material very well. And sometimes they're wearing a headset and they're able to do problems. And sometimes thousands of kids are watching them maybe online or on TV even, or they're in a private classroom and the person is teaching. So I think everybody from Asia is familiar with that model of sort of after school cram schools where kids are learning extra stuff. And so it sounded like you had a team of people who came more or less from that background, but then you had another team that was coming more from kind of AI applied to learning or adaptive personalized learning perspective.
Yeah.
And second team was trying to break the subject into really tiny, extremely specific things that a kid would need to learn to, say, fully master algebra or fully master, American history or something. And it took, I guess, 3 years to get those two groups to kind of see eye to eye and to build the infrastructure so that you could adaptively measure the learning of the child on each of these little micro goals along the way. And if the kid clearly understood everything except this one micro goal, then you would kind of drill them on that micro goal in an automated way. Is that how we should understand your platform?
Yes, you're right. Yeah. The differences from the classroom is that was done by the teachers, where in our product, our platform, everything was done by AI. And the teachers, the superior teachers, they just design the contents. So they are back of the screen. People don't see them, right? So they don't teach at all. So you are right. Yeah, the AI platform diagnose the students' weakness and strengths and the whole knowledge state. And the goal can be set up at the beginning, but the goals will be changed dynamically based on the students' learning behavior and the progress. So the granular level of the learning objective is very important that the AI can track, right, can diagnose. And also more important is once the AI understands, and then the AI will recommend the students the very precise granular level of the learning objective, the contents, the problem exercise, the videos, watching and everything in a really, really precisely. Then that will save time for the students. Yeah.
Yes. So the thing that you guys built over those 3 years, I think for people who are a little bit more advanced in their thinking, who understand AI and testing, adaptive testing, that framework is very familiar as something you would aspire to. But I don't know very many examples where someone has actually successfully built that whole system for a specific subject, whether it's, modern Chinese history, chemistry, algebra. So it's kind of amazing that it's a company. So the reason I was so interested in Squirrel AI when I read about you is I thought, wow, this company, if what I'm reading is correct, they've actually accomplished this goal that many education researchers, people who are more sophisticated about AI technologies, but who are interested in education, they've been thinking theoretically that this is the kind of system that could be built, but I don't know of a lot of examples. And so that's why when I heard about Squirrel, I really wanted to talk to you about it. At what point were you guys convinced that this was working? Because obviously no one else had built something like this before you, right? During that 3 years, what was the journey like? How did you convince the teachers who came from a different tradition that, wow, this is really working. This is really actually going to be good for the kids? Maybe you can give us some color about that.
Sure. Well, I think the key person or the key element is Derek. He is the person. He always want to do something that people have never done that before. So he dig into this industry. I think at the beginning, before he started to build this company, he found some research papers, some efficacy studies from Western countries. As I mentioned, that was about regular level of the adaptivity of learning. So he was 100% sure that adaptive learning is the future, but he just want to make it more higher level. So he convinced everything. He convinced the scientists. And the scientists he recruited at the beginning, they were from US, from Newton, from Alex. So they were the data scientists and designers of those adaptive systems. So they had full belief in adaptive learning. So that's okay with the scientists. And speaking of the curriculum content designers, those teachers, that was hard. But the good thing is all the good teachers, their goals are the same. They want to provide personalized learning for each different student. The teachers are good, but they understand one teacher can probably cover 300 students maximum. They cannot help more, but they want to do more. They want to contribute more. But by what? By who? By person? No way. So it's going to be by an intelligent system. So they had fight, they had argument, but the mission is the same. The direction is the same. This is more important.
So during that 3 years, I'm guessing what happens is that you built the product to the point where you felt you could launch. And when you were you launching in actual physical locations, like actual schools where kids would come and then use maybe your product on a tablet? I think that's what I saw online. To get to that goal, had you already more or less done enough research that if you were at a university, you would have published like a bunch of papers saying, hey, this learning system is actually extremely efficient, extremely good for the kids? Like, had you already more or less like done that level of research when you launched?
Yes, we've done some research at that time. And when we started to launch, I don't think we had our research paper published yet, but we did talk to the public schools and private schools and some after-school tutoring centers and tell them that, okay, this is the difficulty you are facing, let's try something new. Of course, we won't charge it. So they organize, say, 500 students and to use our product and to test out. Of course, we gave some rewards to teachers, to students, to schools to organize. So all the results show that the students gain better results with AI learning. And we did have another comparison group, which is human teachers teaching. So of course, the AI group has better results. So before the launch, we started to do some experiment demo with A/B testing. And after our product launched, we started to do, we called AI versus human teacher competition, but it's more like efficacy study. So the very first AI versus human teaching was done in October 2017. That's just right after we launched the system a few months later. We did it in Zhengzhou, China, for 4 full days. And I think there were about over 40 media across the world and came to interview us because we did the very first AI versus human teaching in Asia Pacific. I think it was a very hot topic of the AlphaGo competition. So people want to know, okay, how did you do in AI education?
Yeah, so it's kind of amazing because 2017, it's already 8 years ago, right? And what's interesting is that if you talk to US educators, or even like if I talk to someone who's at, say, Khan Academy, probably you're familiar with Khan Academy, after LLMs came out in the last year or two, Khan Academy has really been trying to use LLMs in what they do. And I think Khan Academy is great, and lots of American students benefit, including my own kids benefited from Khan Academy when they were in school. But it just seems like China was actually more advanced because you guys already had your platform running for the last 8 years. And my understanding is what you guys are doing, that kind of adaptive learning, that breaking individual subjects into micro learning goals and then being able to test for mastery of those goals and then circle back if the student doesn't have mastery. That kind of adaptive system, I just don't know of that deployed at scale anywhere except your example. So do you feel like you guys have been way ahead of everybody else for some period of time?
Yes, we were, and we are still ahead. Why is that? Because at the beginning, we had AI plus adaptive. And later, after we launched our product, we noticed that in the market, in the Western countries, and also probably mainly in Western countries at that time, like some publishers, HMH, Microhill, and of course, Duolingo, Dreambox, they started to deploy adaptive learning. But it matters is the level of adaptivity, how granular they break down their learning objectives, how much AI algorithm they use, how accurate it can be recommended to the students, and how do the students perceive the accuracy and the improvements, right, and the efficacies. So that matters. But anyway, those companies, they started to using adaptive learning already. And in China, I think later 18, 19s, there's some companies, and even in Indonesia, in India, there are more companies started using adaptive learning. And at a time in 2009, I think 2020, 19, we started to use LLM already. And actually, when I say we started to use LLM, we didn't use it. We designed our own large model, but it wasn't LLM. LLM is only 10% in our whole engine. So actually, the current engine of our product is called LAM, which is Large Adaptive Model. So it's the combination of AI adaptive plus multimodal large model. Because when students learning, when the AI is sending the information content to the students, it must be multimodal. It cannot be just language, right? It will be the speed, right or wrong answer, the learning behavior, voice, eye gazing time, and concentration or distraction. And even when they use the pen to write on the screen, it can be captured as the learning solution. So different students have different learning solution. The AI will analyze this. And also when they write the article, will be AI assessment, blah, blah. So it's multimodality. So we haven't seen any companies using adaptive plus large model. They are either just adaptive plus some LLM, or they are just LLM based. But we don't think, especially for pre-K to 12 students, it's better to let them learn on their own with LAM rather than to just give them the answers, the feedback, the solution recommendations, because they really need to think. They really need to generate. They really need to create their own mindset, not to be given some feedback or answers.
Wow. Okay. There's so much interesting stuff in what you just said. You know, when I said I didn't know of other cases where this kind of adaptive learning was implemented, I had forgotten about Duolingo because I was not thinking of that as a general education platform, but they do teach language. I know the Duolingo founders actually, I think they're Carnegie Mellon CS PhD. So they do know, they do understand this subject quite well, but I didn't think about them because they're not teaching algebra or history. When you say multimodal model, have you guys trained your own or are you using something like QN? Like, what is actually doing the multimodal processing on your platform?
So we train our own. That's, we spend lots of money on AI and data training and everything. So we didn't outsource many things. So we only, as I mentioned, we only use 10% like outsource from LLM, those general LLMs. So the data that our system is training is mainly the students' learning behavior. But this is a very big name of learning behavior. So we need to break down. So what are those data, right? As I mentioned, when a student is recommended to watch a 3 minutes video, it will be a teaching or animation, blah, blah video. So it could be the student thought, okay, I understand, I've learned it. I want to fast forward. So this is the data. But maybe the next student just look at it and watch. And another student also watched same speed, but the eyes were moving around. It means the student was distracted, right? And another student maybe just back forward because he or she didn't understand. So this is one scenario, but with different feedback that the AI will take into account and to analyze different students. And if we have 1 million students, there will be all different feedback. And also that's only one data, like one aspect. And also all the students, they have some backgrounds, right? History data. So based on this mastery level of that learning objective, and even the prerequisite learning objective, if the student has mastered or not, or maybe related learning objectives that is related to the current one, if the students mastered or not, everything matters. Everything that is need to be analyzed together. And also the speed, the time, if the answer is right or wrong, right? And how many times the student relearn this learning objectives, how many problems or questions the student have practiced. There are all this kind of data. So we train and our system train itself and also learn those data from students and then train and learn from other students and train. And also that's the part about the students' learning behavior. But also our system does train our own contents, like the tagging. We had tagging for different contents at the very beginning by human, like manually to tag. But later on, we could recognize, okay, the tags might not be correct, right? So the AI will correct. So that's also based on the training. So yeah.
Very interesting. So I'm getting a better picture of your platform. I think you actually just said that when the student is working with the tablet is actually watching the student and doing eye tracking, among other things, right? And so it actually sees the attention level that the student is paying. And so it doesn't sound like you've trained independently your own, what we would call a multimodal large language model, which is a language model that can do like audio, video, image, language, input, output. Like that's a separate thing. And it doesn't sound like your platform actually requires you to have that.
Well, we do actually, yes, our platform does require that.
But this is not a super important point, but I'm just curious, are you saying you guys like ByteDance and Alibaba and, DeepSeek? Well, even DeepSeek hasn't actually trained its full multimodal model, but you're not saying you guys have trained a state-of-the-art multimodal LLM. You're saying you use multimodal input in your LAM.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Not to divert the conversation, but it seems like that based on the student data you could evaluate. So in the West, if you got a PhD in psychology or in education, there's something known as the general intelligence of an individual, which is heavily correlated to how fast they learn new topics. And if you have fully adaptive evaluation of learning of a student, you can see the rate at which they learn things. And of course, certain subjects they learn faster and certain subjects they learn less fast, but there's a general correlation between their so-called general intelligence and how fast they learn averaged across many subjects. So it seems like your platform can, if you wanted to, I know this wasn't necessarily your goal, but you could actually extract that overall kind of average learning rate for each student and have an evaluation of what in the West we call their general intelligence. And I'm curious, is that something you guys have ever thought about?
Yeah, I think it's related. Alex. We do have different subjects for students to learn, but it's also very important that we have a parallel system, which is called MCM, which is actually similar. MCM stands for methodology, capacity, and mode of thinking. So in this system, we had different figures on their learning abilities, like comprehensive understanding abilities, critical thinking, and, all those different skills and abilities. So once they finish one session of the learning, of course, the report will show the mastery level of different learning objectives and content. But also there's a page showing the MCM elements levels. So once the student have been learning, say, 6 months in the system, their learning behavior, their learning abilities, and those MCM elements can be higher, of course. Yeah. But it's not only the learning speed, it's not only the learning of levels, but also different elements. Because with MCM, students and the parents can understand the students better. Well, knowledge is very important, but the MCM, those abilities, skills are more important when they go to work, right? So some students, they are thinking, okay, I want to be a scientist in the future, but their math is really poor, or maybe their logic thinking is really poor, but they just really want to be scientists in the future. Then in that way, we can see from MCM elements, okay, some specific skills and methods and abilities the student needs to train. Then we know the direction. Or maybe I want to be a dancer in the future. Then I don't need to learn. But maybe I need to train my dimension, graph, understanding, some other skills. So the MCM can diagnose different elements and to train the students towards their direction in the future.
So in the West, if you're a researcher in a field called psychometrics, so psycho means the brain, the mind, and metrics means measurement. If you're a researcher in psychometrics, the main observation is those MCM elements that you're talking about. If you do factor analysis, if you do sort of principal components decomposition, even though there are many different skills, like some may have to do with math, some may have to do with visual thinking, some may have to do with language, there's actually one largest general factor within there that's, because all these factors are correlated. They're not perfectly correlated, but they have some positive correlation. And psychometrics is about extracting something called the general factor from that multidimensional space of what I think you guys would call MCM. So maybe offline we can talk about do an experiment, whether you can analyze your MCM variables and extract what Western psychometricians would call the general factor of intelligence. So okay. We should look at that.
Yes, definitely. We would love to learn. Yeah.
Another way to turn it around is if you say, I have a student and she's been in the system for 6 months or a year. I have enough data that I could actually predict maybe I should present things to her a little bit faster in this area or a little bit slower, because I can tell what her rate of absorption, the rate at which she learns in this area. But that model, you're predicting something about the person from the previous data that you've seen from the person. That's also related to, quote, measuring intelligence or measuring general intelligence. So exactly. Yeah, we should talk about that.
Sure, definitely. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So tell us something, I think I read about this, but I'd like to hear it more from you. Like the scale of your operations in China is amazing, right? So tell us how many physical locations, how many students, how many different knowledge areas you're teaching.
Okay. So far, we have about 3,000 locations and about 1,500 self-study centers. And the others are more like a point or stand, very, very tiny, small place. So with those self-study centers, that's a very, very new and different business model we started a few years ago. So in those centers, we have supervisors, like 2 or 3 supervisors, but no teachers. Of course, supervisors are human, right? But they are not teachers, don't teach. So and there are 2 or 3 or maybe 5 classrooms, and the student can just bring their tablet into those self-study centers, and they just put a headset and they can start to learn. And the classroom has different grades of students, and they are learning different subjects. And so our business model is the supervision with data analysis plus the students self-study in the center or at home. Because we think supervisors and data analysts are very, very important to help the students. So that's actually our business model. But if a parent or the student says, okay, I don't want to go to the center, I want to stay home, can I do it? Of course, you can bring a tablet anywhere you want, but it's better that you have a supervisor or data analyst who can talk to you online. Like my daughter, she's in Melbourne and she's using our tablet to learn in Melbourne on her own every day. But she has a supervisor, data analyst, talk to her on WeChat anytime she wants. So that person can help her and do analysis. Hey, Carrie, what's going on? And also some prediction AI can do. But with the data analyst, when they look at that data, those data dashboard, when they talk to the students, it's more easy to understand for us, for users. So this is how it looks like. And so far, in the past 11 years, we've had 43 million users accumulated. Yes. And I think another data we are really, really, we think is fantastic is the learning behavior data. We've got over 2 billion learning behavior data. That's actually makes the system really, really accurate and to make the students can learn to get the improvements. And yeah, that's about the business model.
So the 3,000 locations that you mentioned, are those more like a traditional, I don't want to use the word cram school, but are those places where there are also teachers as well as your software platform? Do you have any teachers?
No teachers. As I mentioned, supervisors. Yeah. And they were not teachers in the past. It could be, you could be the supervisor. I could be, or anyone who has had training in our system can be the, supervisor. And the roles of the supervisor too. One is when the students are there, they do emotional communication, interaction, or maybe organizing some games and break, and to keep an eye on the students' progress. And another key role is doing data analysis. In our whole company, we call them either supervisor or we call them the data analyst.
Okay. So if a kid is in one of your centers or maybe working at home and, they're trying to use the system, but they're confused about something. They have some question and the video doesn't answer the question and they're kind of looking around and they can't find the answers to their question. The method what you want them to do is either to talk to the supervisor at the center or go on WeChat and talk to the supervisor online. But will the supervisor actually answer a content question? Like if the student has a really actual content question, is there a way that gets answered without it being the AI, the platform answer?
Good question. Actually, there are 2 ways to give the students feedback. The first method would be actually the chatbot on the system. So the students should talk to the AI chatbot first about the contents, about anything. If the students think, okay, it cannot be solved, and they can talk to their data analyst. And for the supervisor data analyst, they are not allowed to give any hints to the contents. And especially they are not teachers. They cannot, right? It could be other occupation in the past and they don't understand how to teach math. Of course, they cannot give the answer in the content. Yeah.
Okay, but so let me give you an example because I guess I haven't not taught a lot of little kids. I guess I taught my own kids, but mostly I'm teaching college students, right, or graduate
Yeah.
students. And it's often the case that, they're reading the textbook, they're doing the problem set, and they have a legitimate question which is really not answered well by the textbook or even what I told them in lecture or in the solution to the problem. It could be even a deep question. Sometimes students have actually very deep questions that are not in the syllabus. My role as the professor is that I actually can answer all those questions. If something like that happens in your system, what does the kid do? Like, I guess they could always go to their real teacher at the school and ask them. But how do you guys think about those situations?
Okay, first of all, actually in our system, all the contents are broken down into really, really nano level of the content. So it won't be a really big question. And also in the process of learning, we have different process and different sections. So it won't be the whole bunch of the question the student doesn't understand. So they will need to learn the video, teaching video, and they will do some exercise. If the student is really frustrated and cannot move to the next step, right? Yeah. There are different analysis by the AI already. So we've already predicted and what kind of difficulties the students may face. So the AI will provide as much as possible already. So I would say it can solve the student's problem. But if the students still have question, then the AI chatbot. Otherwise, the supervisor can help. But basically, as I mentioned, the AI can give some hint about the content because it's from the AI system, right?
Right.
But the data analyst cannot really give this content or knowledge-based feedback, but AI can. And also, if the student cannot learn well or solve the problem and just stuck there, then the AI will skip this session, say, okay, let's move to the next level, or maybe let's move to the next component. Then that's the time the AI understand, okay, Joleen is not capable of learning this knowledge. I need to give her some prerequisite or related or lower level, lower difficulty level of the learning component. It could be 1 point lower. It could be 10 points lower. It really depends on the analysis by the AI. Then the AI will recommend me to learn something else. Then I feel, oh, I can master it. I can learn it. So that's the kind of analysis with adaptivity. Yeah, because
okay, I got it.
Yeah, because our students are not college. They don't really have very big question. But for high school students, there are some more difficult components. As I mentioned, our AI has already broken down to very granular level.
I could give you an example. Like when my kids were learning about evolution in AP biology, this question came up. I don't know how it came up, like whether one of my kids asked it or some other kid. And it was, what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? And there is actually in evolutionary this sounds like a paradox, but there's actually a correct answer in evolutionary theory because organisms that laid eggs existed before there were any birds or chickens or even reptiles or dinosaurs. So the egg definitely came first. And the first chicken was born from a parent that laid an egg. So the egg actually came before the chicken. But this is actually a subtle question, and it's hard to imagine the AI or the syllabus or the video. If the kid, maybe the kid wouldn't have this weird question, but the system, it's hard to imagine a system that's fully able to deal with things like that, right? But I wonder if you guys are thinking always the kid has a regular school and this is enrichment beyond the regular school, but they always have the regular school as the resources. Is that important to the way you? Yeah. Okay.
It is, yeah. So the students go to regular schools, and they're very small percentage of the students, they don't go to regular schools. Why is that? Either they are really, really poor students. They cannot understand anything in the classroom. Then they don't go. They will just use our system to learn. Or another extreme is the student who are really, really, really,
Brilliant.
higher level smart, and then they choose not to go to the school or maybe skip some classes, like Derek's twin boys. Derek win Olympic math when he was young, and his twin boys are super genius. They are in the best private schools in Shanghai, but they skip. They don't go to schools anymore. They stay home to learn two things. One is using Squirrel AI learning tablet to learn all the subjects in order to go to Gaokao, the final exam to university a few years later. But another learning they do is Olympic, and other programming by individual special class or teachers. So they want to train themselves in a special way, but not to follow the regular progress of the classroom, even though that school is already the best private school, but they're
Right.
genius. So two extremes. Yeah.
Yeah. So a kid who's off scale can accelerate using the Squirrel
Exactly.
platform. I'm not sure I understood though. Did you say the Squirrel platform actually lets you practice for Olympiad math or Olympiad
Oh, no,
programming?
no, no. No,
Okay.
not yet, not yet. But we are designing Olympic math programs with Olympic math team now. So we don't have it yet, but we are
Yeah.
going to have it.
Yeah. One of the reasons when I was introduced to you and Derek, at first I kind of wanted to talk to Derek because I knew that was one of the top Chinese math Olympiad competitors when he was young. So I was interested in that angle. But I also was interested in your angle because you're bringing all this to the United States. So we ended up you and me talking, but I would love to talk to Derek some other point. One of the things I should have said to the listeners is this guy, Derek, is probably in some sense himself a genius. And probably that played a big role in building the system the first 3 years, because I have a feeling he had a vision and a lot of insight into how to build like this kind of adaptive system. And that probably was quite important in realizing it. In China, what is the attitude of parents towards Squirrel? Because I can imagine some parents saying, my kid really likes it. And at least according to the measurements, this AI system is really more efficient for teaching. But I can imagine another set of parents saying, I just can't believe I'm going to turn over, even though it's not the main school, it's the enrichment part of the, after school program. But even that, I'm not going to turn that over to some software platform. I have to have like the best instructor in Beijing teaching my kids, at the cram school. What's the kind of attitude generally about acceptance level of your technology in China?
Nowadays, I would say 100% of the parents, they are afraid of being left behind. So they are embracing technology. They understand because of the policy in 2000, the double reduction policy in 2021, and also AI came to everyone. So everyone is embracing AI. So that's no issue at all. They prefer, right, to have AI to teach because it saves money and it can give your kids better improvements. And there's no place to find human teachers to teach anyway, right? So yeah, the attitude is positive. And I would say 80 to 90% of the parents in China, they prefer their kids to learn something else after regular school, no matter what. It could be poor student or middle level student, could be really fantastic students, but they always want to learn on their own pace. So they definitely want to choose something. So that's good in China's market. And I think more important when the parents, they want to continue the payment to our, subscription or anything, the results and improvements from the student. So the very first step when they started to think, okay, should I buy this product? Should I purchase the product service? That's the point when they see the analysis report from the AI system. They say, oh my God, that understands my kid so much. And they also ask their kid, how do you feel about it? Most kids, they will say two things. One is, it's so fun. It's like playing a game and I have to go one by one. The second, they will say, it looks like this AI understands me better than my teacher. Something like that.
The kid can tell the evaluation is accurate. Like if there's some skill that they realize they don't quite get, the AI realizes they don't quite get it. And if they can do it with 100% accuracy, the AI realizes that, right? So the kid really feels the AI is understanding.
Yeah, that's the first step. And then after, say, 1 month or 2 months, the kids either get better scores in school or they have better improvements in the system. And also they can show, in the past, I may be not really into study, but now I can spend 2 hours study or 1 hour study. I like study. I think I am confident and motivated. Then that's another improvement. So improvements, continuous improvements in involvement will make the final decision for the parents to continue. Yeah.
Great. So you mentioned the 2021 change in government policy, which, I'm not even sure I fully understand. Let me tell you what I learned about it, and you can correct me because I don't have kids in China, so I don't really know how this worked. But my understanding is that Xi Jinping or the central government thought we don't want widening inequality. So we don't want these rich parents to be able to hire really excellent tutors, and average people can't hire these tutors. And then it changes, who can get into the top colleges. So they sort of they sort of banned tutoring above a certain price or above a certain kind of level and tried to kind of democratize the education process. Is that fair? What actually happened?
Yeah, not really correct. So the goal of that policy was to give learning equity to everyone. So the price really went crazy at that time. And not only rich family can afford it, but it was just too high. And that was the turning point that AI was kind of into, the whole industry, but not yet. So the goal, as I mentioned, was to bring equity to everyone. And also at a time, there are too many traditional learning centers across China. And some teachers are good, but only small percentage of the teachers. But some teachers might not be good quality. We tested many tutors in the after school centers at that time. The mastery level of their middle school math, grade 7, 8, is under 60%, which means they cannot, they are not qualified. So the quality of after school tutoring wasn't good enough at the time because, of course, we don't have that many good teachers anyway. So the government wants to have better results, better quality, better environment for this whole market, for this whole country. So they decided to have that policy. Of course, it had really bad, effects to the whole industry. And we also faced the same situation. But we were actually the company, we encouraged this kind of policy because we didn't have human teachers to teach. And we know that AI should be the future. And as I mentioned, all the teachers are behind the screen in our system. They don't teach in front of the classroom. So we actually encouraged, we think that's correct decision. But the thing for us was bad is because we sold our system to those traditional tutoring centers and they were affected. So they had to shut down. So we had our revenue really went to zero and we had a debt. And then now we did a pivot and everything is fine now. So we came back. But we think the policy was good. It should have that policy. It's just too strict and too quick. It's just, one day. And yeah, that was kind of dark time. But we want to improve the whole educational environment. We have to sacrifice something and do something new. Yeah.
But just to clarify, so in 2021, the government sort of abruptly, as you said, they didn't shut down after school learning. They just shut them down, or did they put a cap on what you could charge?
Shut down.
They just shut them down. Oh, okay. So they just removed the license. Like you're no longer allowed to.
Exactly.
And so my understanding is there's still tutors who will go to people's houses and teach their kid. But maybe is that illegal now? It
was illegal after the policy in 2021, and it is still illegal now.
Got it. But it happens a little bit, right?
Yeah, who knows? As long as nobody knows.
But this whole situation now should be great for you, right? Because if the goal of the government is equity, you can deliver, if there's some very poor school district in Xinjiang you can deliver your product at a discount to them. It doesn't cost you that much to deliver it.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I think the way to get to equity, whether it's in the US or China, is actually to make these really excellent learning technologies available to everyone. So is the government actually kind of supporting you guys now? Like, are they
Yes.
on your
Yes.
side? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the government, the local government in Shanghai and also the central government, they supported us the whole time. And we just had two official donations to Tibet area and also Qinghai province area. And was organized by the central government, the Ministry of Education in China. So Derek went on the two trips with the ministers together and to give the donation and more important to help the rural area kids to learn. So that's the goal, to bring learning equity. And before that, we've done many donations and help with rural and remote areas of the students. They don't have teachers. Maybe just one teacher teach all the subject, right? So we gave our learning account to the students, and they get really, really, really great improvements. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's fantastic. So we're nearing an hour. It went by really fast, like I said.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
maybe we could just talk about the challenges and the opportunities for you guys in America. So me, I would say it's great that Chinese families and parents like your system and understand its advantages. I would guess lots of Americans will not like their kid taught by a computer. And even though like maybe by showing them lots of like statistics or evidence, you can prove to some of them that the system is better. A lot of them will just have some kind of psychological or emotional barrier against letting the kid learn this way. And I'm curious what you're experiencing.
Yeah, for the US market, we are still under the content localization progress. So we haven't launched a product yet. So hopefully next year. But I believe we are going to face this situation. So actually in 2017 to 2020 in China, we also had the same problem. It's just now we don't have this problem, but we had before. So the first important thing is you have to have a supervisor human in the center to help the students. That's for sure. And secondly, you have to show the improvements to the parents. Like I mentioned, to really, really great and necessary feedback from the students. Then they will think, okay, that's the future. And I understand there are many American parents, they don't want their kids to be, holding their phone and tablet and laptop all the time. But it's the trend that everyone is using the laptop to finish the homework, right? So we have to teach the whole market. I know it's gonna take time, but it's good that as long as we can show the results. And before we are going to launch our product, we will also organize a few efficacy studies in the US market. As I mentioned, we've had many in the past, over 100 efficacy studies, but they were all in China. So we're gonna do the same in US to show that, okay, the students gain better results, blah, 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 blah. They love learning. They started to improve their MCM abilities. And I think that will be another evidence. And also when we show and promote our product to the parents, we will tell them that, okay, all the contents are designed and localized based on the US teachers. And we had great content designing team. And some of them, they were award-winning teachers from different states. And one of our brand ambassador, Alex, he's also the whole state award-winning teacher. So they understand the students and they believe in AI, right? So when the students use AI, they don't just receive some text or some PowerPoints with some words. They receive animations. They receive a teacher teaching. So it's more like a real, learning atmosphere. So that's what we're going to do. So yeah, I think it's going to be a huge challenge, but it's the future, it's the trend. It will just take some time to educate the whole market.
It's great. I mean, because these subjects that all kids have to learn between kindergarten and grade 12 are really the same subjects. They don't change that much. You're really building an infrastructure that has value. It's going to have value for hundreds of years, like the content and the ability to measure the learning outcomes in that space of content. It's not going to suddenly become useless 10 years, 20 years from now. It's going to be useful forever because every kid has to learn chemistry. Every kid has to learn algebra. So it's worth doing right
Yes.
and putting the energy into it that you guys are doing. So
Yeah.
great. I just want to say one thing to you that actually you're a PhD, so I think you can understand this. Many Asian kids become nearsighted. Okay, I'm very nearsighted. Okay, I think I'm like 7 diopters or something, right? Because they, as they're developing, their eyes don't get enough natural light. So it turns out our evolutionary system is anticipating receiving natural light, which includes
Yeah.
ultraviolet light. It's actually higher intensity than what you get indoors. And so when I was growing up, I kept wondering, like, why am I so nearsighted? Is it genetic or is it environmental? And it turns out there are a lot of studies, actually a lot of them in Australia, which show that kids who just get exposed to enough natural light, which you would get if you went outside and played
Hmm.
regularly in the sunshine, do not become nearsighted. And so when my kids were born, and I still wasn't sure whether this condition was mostly genetic or not, I had read these studies. So when my kids were growing up, I always made sure they went outside and got like
Hmm.
an hour or two of natural light all throughout their childhood. And neither of them are nearsighted. Neither of them even really need glasses, which is amazing because I'm very nearsighted and my wife is also nearsighted. So one of the things I think you guys could do on your platform is if you somehow remind the kid to go outside and get some sunlight. And also I would even tell my kids, do something that requires you to focus on objects which are really far away. Because
Yeah.
if you're reading all the time, like smart kids like to read all the time, right? And these days kids are like looking at their phones or their Squirrel AI tablet all the time. It's fine, but they need to spend at least some time focusing far away and receiving strong natural light. And then they won't become nearsighted. So actually, this is something you could do to improve the lives of millions of kids. If you embed something in your platform that gets them to do this every day, I think the long-term benefit is really good. So I
Right.
can talk more about this offline, but I actually did this experiment with my own kids. So my kids don't need glasses. And yet my wife and I are really nearsighted because we grew up at a time when nobody knew about the science, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, thanks for that suggestion. And I think that's great. And we really care about the students' eyes as well. So all the screens, the technology we use for the screen is sort of with the highest protection, the highest standard,
Yeah.
international standard. But I agree that they need to go out and look distance. I totally agree. That's if they stay in the center, the supervisor will do that to encourage them.
Okay. Good.
But yeah, a notice, a reminding is really great suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, if you every now and then just tell them, like, if you don't want to have bad vision, do this every day. And
Yeah.
then, like, I think that's a very valuable, like, not very many people actually know this. I regularly ask eye doctors this question. My whole life every time I see a new eye doctor, I ask them, like, well, how much of this is genetic and how much of this is controlled by my behavior? And actually only a few people are familiar with these studies. But I'm really glad I read these studies before my kids were born, because now my kids
Wow.
don't. So
That's good. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so Joleen, it's been fantastic talking to you. And actually, there's a bunch of scientific things maybe offline we can maybe discuss further, like about measurement of intelligence and stuff like that. I'm sure my listeners will really enjoy this interview. So thanks a lot.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. Very nice talking to you, Steve.